Okay, so this is the Fusion tutorial number 5. This is the first activity. We'll be making a iPhone X phone case. Right now we have our design space. I'm just going to import my iPhone X model. So I'll go down to File. I'm going to click Open. I'm going to select Open from my computer because that's where I've saved it. So I'll select the step file, hit OK to open, and now I have my phone model. Right. So right now, if you look at the origin, which I'll show here, you can see that my iPhone X is sort of facing the wrong way. I kind of want it to be lying on this plane here. So how can I fix that? Well, what I can do is, if you notice, my iPhone is actually in a separate component right now, because whenever you import a file, it will basically import it as a separate component. So if I were to open this, you can see that I have all my bodies here. And so what I can do is I can simply select the entire component by left clicking on it. I'm going to press M, which is the shortcut for the move copy tool. And what I can do is, by default, you should have free move. So this is what you see. All right. And with this, you can move it up and down, rotate it however you want. In this case, what I want is to lay it over here. Now I could use my camera angles and try and position it correctly, 90 degrees and everything, but I'll do it in a more precise way. So what I'll do first is I will rotate this 90 degrees to the left so that it's lying flat with the top facing away from the front. So from here you can see that my rotation is actually following this point here. So if I rotate, you can see that my iPhone X model rotates along that axis, right? In this case, what I want to do is I want to actually have the very center of this bottom face be positioned exactly at the center of my origin. So what I can do is I can change the move type to point to point. So what I'll do is I'll select point to point. You see my arrows go away. Now it's prompting me to select an origin point. In this case, I'm going to hover over, and you can see there in the center, I have a point on my phone. I'm going to select that. Now it's going to tell me to put a target point. I'm going to select the center of my origin, and you can sort of see that there's a little line telling me the direction in which it's going to move. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to click on that point, and now you can see my phone is exactly in the center of the origin point and flat on that, flat over on the plane itself. So from here, I'm going to hit OK, and now my iPhone is in the center. Now one thing I've actually forgot to mention is that by now you can see that I'm missing something quite important, and that's my timeline. I'm not too bothered that I haven't captured the move history because I haven't started working on the cover itself. So what I'll do is just right click on my design, and I'm going to click capture design history. And so now you can see that my previous movements were all grouped into this little dialog box here. You hit the plus symbol, and it will expand out. So in this case, it will show it as a finished base. Don't worry about this. We don't need to bother with this right now. So now that I've got it positioned correctly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my origin. And actually, one more thing before I forget. So if for whatever reason, if you're moving, if I press the move shortcut, I can actually position where I want my point of axis or rotation to move. So in this case, let's just say I want to flip it back up. If I select here at the very end, and I rotate this 90 degrees, I'm just going to leave it like this for now. You can see that it rotates 90 degrees. But let's just say I want to then go and rotate it from this point instead. How do I move my axis? Well, you just set pivot over here. So if I click set pivot, you can see now I can reselect my axis again. So I'm going to select this point here. Now if I then try to rotate, you can see nothing happens. And that's because I'm still moving my axis, essentially. And so what you see is that there's a green arrow here. Not green arrow, sorry, green tick. And then what you do is you hit done. This has set my axis, and now if I rotate it, I can rotate it again. So this is just how you navigate the axis of rotations using the move command. So I'm going to cancel to go back to where I was. So now let's begin creating the case. So what I want to do is I want to create a border all around my phone, right? So I can basically encase it and protect it. So I'm going to create a new sketch, and I'm going to select the middle plane. So here, again, I want it to essentially follow this curve, but I don't want to have to draw it. I could go in and create a spline and try my best to combine all of these. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to hit P for project. I'm going to select the edges again, like so. And if I want, I can always select these ones just to make sure that I've got the full edge covered. I'm going to hit OK. And if I ever find like the bodies, I can't select the edges because the body is in the way, all I can simply do is hide the body using the eye icon. And now I have just the sketch. So here I'm going to create an offset so that I can increase the thickness of my case. I'm going to select each of these lines. Sometimes if you can't hit, that's fine. I'll just... Offsetting can be a little bit finicky sometimes, I feel. Yeah, so it doesn't want me to do that right now. What I can do actually is I can just hit an offset for as much.
Offset out, sorry, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's not to do with that. It's sometimes, remember with projections, they are not connected. The lines aren't connected. So unless they're connected, I can't actually offset it. So I'm going to just offset it by -2 outwards just for now. I'm just going to repeat this offset for the parts that weren't able to be connected. Flip it. Again, -2. And one last one for the edge that didn't make it. So -2. Okay. So just to test, I want to make sure that my phone case, this profile is actually all connected, as in our lines are all connected. So what I'll do is I'll just create a line from this bottom edge, and I'll just bring it over through. And I'll make sure this is a vertical line, so I'll put the vertical constraint. And you can see my lines are in fact connected. It's just that during the offsetting, these lines here, the projection lines, weren't actually connected to one another. That's why I couldn't offset the entire line. So I can just quickly try and see if that works. Oops. What I'll do is I'll remove this offset constraint. You don't have to do this, I'm just sort of proving a point here. You can see that our line isn't connected because if I double click here, it doesn't select the entire line. So even though our lines aren't actually connected to the points, because our profile is still able to be selected, I'm happy with that. It doesn't really matter to me. So I'm just going to undo all these back to where I was. So make sure you go vertical constraint, you have your profile. We'll finish sketch. Again, we'll bring back our body, and now you can see that I have a sort of C-shaped edge over the entire profile that will match. Now, if you're worried that maybe you might have, say, this is a bit too tight, and you want to give it a little bit of a gap, you can. You can either offset it here, or you can offset the face later when we've created the case. For now, I'll leave it as is. So I'll finish sketch. And what I'll do is, we want this profile to sweep over the entire edge of this iPhone. So how can we do that, you think? Revolve? So if we... Yeah, so you'd have to use the sweep to remember. Revolve is just along the axis. So let's just say I did this. It will look like that. I'm revolving around an axis. If I use sweep, so if I go to sweep, I select the profile. I've got the path. Now what would my path be, you think? Over here, all around, right? So I already have a line over the entire edge of the iPhone. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select each of these lines. And you can see here, I don't actually have a connection to this edge. What I can do is I'll just try and see if the other line is connected. No, it's not. So I can only go so far, right? In this case, what I want to do is just create a sketch line to guide it, since our 3D body doesn't seem to be connecting. Right, so there's many ways you can do the same. In previous tutorials, we managed to sweep it along the body, but in this case, because our imported model doesn't seem to connect the lines, what we'll do instead is we'll first hide the body, we'll create a sketch, we'll select the mid plane because that's what it's been aligned to. Oh, sorry, we actually can't create on the mid plane there. We need to create a plane along this line instead, which actually is a good exercise. So I'll go back to my sketch here. And remember, I want to basically create a plane on this middle line here. So how can I do that? Well, what I can do is I'll just create a line, make it vertical, like so. I'll press X, the shortcut, to make it a construction line. I'll finish my sketch. I'll go to construct, and I'll create plane at angle over here. So you see, because I have my line selected, it'll automatically give me a plane. Let's just say if I hadn't had it selected, I'll go to plane at angle. It'll tell me to select a line. I would select this line. And here I can change the angle however I want, right? So in this case, I want it to be 90 degrees from there, which is basically 0. You can see if I look from the side, it is now perpendicular. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to select on the plane, create a sketch, and here I can bring back my body. And again, I don't have to look at it. What I can do is I can hit my project tool again, select each of these edges, so I've got the entire line as a projection here. I'm going to hit OK. If I hide my body, you can see that I've got this path essentially sweeping across. So now I need to check if this is actually a straight line, a connected line, and it seems to be connected. If I double click it, you can see it's all selected. So even though for some reason 3D body wasn't connecting the line, my sketch is now connecting the line. So I've got my path and I've got my profile in the sketch. So let's try it now. We'll try again the sweep. Select our profile, select our path. And now you see we can create that shell. So sometimes if the 3D body doesn't allow you to create the sweep, you have to think, how can I replicate this 3D body path using a sketch instead? In this case, we can project the bodies. If maybe say there aren't any clear defined edge, then you may have to use splines or other sketch tools to create this shape. In this case, if you created a rectangle and filleted the edges, you would also get the same shape. So I'm okay with this. I'm going to make sure it's new body, that's fine. Hit OK. I don't need this sketch anymore for now. I'm going to hide it. And what I want to show you is that you can see now in my components, I have this one component here, which I haven't saved it yet. So if I were to save my file, let's just save this iPhone case, and I'll save it under this tutorial. I'll save it. Give it a second. You can see now it's changed to my design name. So this component is basically my parent component. If I have another component here, which was my phone, if I hide this component here, you can see I've still got my body, because right now my activated component is the parent component, right? You can see here there's a little dot thing. I'm going to show my phone again. And because of that, any tools I use, any commands I use will be captured under my parent component. Right now, if we hide our iPhone, we have our case. And what we need to do next is to create holes for the buttons, right? Because if we have our case but we can't access our buttons, then what's the point? So what we can do is, again, with the planes, we can see here that this is curved, right? Our buttons are curved. And so if we try to create a sketch on them, you see we can't, because they're curved. It needs to be a flat plane. So what we can do is we can again go to construct, plane at angle. We'll select just this one here. And now you can see it's a horizontal plane. I want it to be vertical, in which case I'll hit 90. Now it's a vertical plane. Hit OK. And now I can create a sketch, like so. So I don't need to be fancy. I just want to make a hole that will allow me to reach my buttons. In this case, I'm going to go to create, rectangle, center rectangle. This is my center point. I'm just going to drag it out. And I think let's just say about maybe 40 long and maybe 5 millimeters wide. So you can see it's locked. If I left click, it will give me my constrained sketch. So in this case, I'm going to fillet the edges as well. I'm going to give this, I think, a 1.5 millimeter fillet. I will select both edges, all four corners by selecting the edges. And if I hit enter, you can see now I've got my rounded sketch. So there's a whole bunch of space here and not so much space here. Now I can either, if I'm really set on keeping the dimensions the same, I want my box to be 40 by 5 millimeters. What I can do is, I find it's a lot easier if you do this. I'll hide the body. And if you click here, you can see there's a bunch of constraints, right? These are coincident constraints, which if you recall, just means that they're connected to something, right? It could be a sketch, it could be a body, it could be anything. So in this case, I'm just going to delete the constraints. And you can see my model is no longer fully constrained. That's fine. Just to make things simpler, I'm also going to delete the construction lines. And what I'm going to do is I'm again going to use my move command, but I'll select the entire sketch. I'll press M, the shortcut for move. And now you can see I've got my arrows again. Now this is only going to move the sketches, right? It's not going to move the body. So if I go back to my iPhone and say I want to position this a little bit more, you know, to evenly space it, I can just move the arrows. I should be able to move it. Hang on. Let me get out of this. Sometimes it's a bit finicky. Yeah, okay, so sometimes if you find what I did was I selected all of it and doesn't move, it could be because of the little points here from the fillet. So instead, since these are all constrained already, I'll just double click to select my entire perimeter. Hit M again, and I'll show you on the iPhone. If I start to move it, now it moves, you see? And again, I can position it however I want, offset, whatever I can decide. I can also say I want this to move not 2 but 1.5, so negative 1.5, and I moved it that way. So for now, I'll just leave it like this. This is kind of where I want it. It looks spaced enough. I'll hit OK, and you can see I've got my sketch. Finish my sketch. Show my phone case again. In this case, I'll hit extrude with my sketch selected, and I'll just cut out. Okay. And because you can see I've not actually finished cutting all my body, as in my phone case, you see? So what I'll do is, instead of going in one side direction, I'll go to 2 sides. Or in this case, I can also just select symmetric, since I know that will more than cut my case. So in this case, I'll just go to symmetric and I'll hit OK. Now I want to notice something, right? If I hide my case, whoops, there goes my phone. What happened there? Well, the reason is because when I extrude it, I basically moved it into the phone, the profile. So it's going to cut my phone as well. How do I tell Fusion, hang on, I just want to cut the case? So there's 2 ways. One way is if I know this phone is just a single body, or in this case a single component, I can just hide it. Now Fusion doesn't see it and it says, okay, you don't want to cut this anymore. That's fine. I'll hit OK. And now my phone is not cut. That's one way you can do it. So if you hide components and use tools, they are not going to be affected by, at least for extrude, right? Now the other way I could do it is, say I've got both my thing, and now imagine you have many complex components in there. You're not going to go in there and hide each and every body. That would take forever. I can simply select objects to cut. There's a drop down menu here. Just click on the arrow, and now I can select the parts I want. In this case, because I've done it before, you would probably see something like this. You'd have all of these selected. Now watch, right? If I select my case, which is body 1 here, right? You can see the component name is also included on the side. If I hide this, you can see that it no longer cuts it. I'm not sure you can see. You can see the difference, right? So now if I select the other components, that's my first button. My second, my third is no longer being cut away. And now I've got everything done. That's fine. I only want my phone case body 1 to be cut. I'll hit OK. And now only my phone case has been cut. If you hide it, you can see my phone is fine. So that's one way you can selectively cut objects, or even join, right? It's the tool that you choose. So again, I'll bring back my phone case. There are more buttons over here, so if I hide it again to see, there's a button here. I'm sure there's some microphone ports and everything, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do all the buttons. It's essentially the same process, right? So right now we have our case, but we've got this massive gaping hole on the back, right? We want this to be covered. Think of what I'm trying to do. I'm basically trying to fill the hole here, right? And so I already have my edges, and I know that my edges are connected, otherwise there wouldn't be a body. So if I go into my surface modeling, I select the patch, and all the patch does is just connect these edges together. If I go down, you can see it's only a surface, right? So I'm going to select that one, I'm going to hit OK, I'm going to select the patch, and I can select this one, hit OK. Now, if I were to look at it from a surface point of view, this is all connected, right? So it's not yet a body. If I were to go into section analysis and cut, you can see it's not actually a body, it's just a surface. So what I can then do is go into boundary fill, which should let me select my faces. I can select the cell that I want, which I believe is this one. Let me hide my surfaces, and now I have a body. It's a new body, but I have an actual body. See? So again, there are many ways you can do it. Because I'm a bit more experienced with Fusion, I would do it this way. It's a lot faster, essentially. And from here, if I have my body, I'm going to remove these because I don't need them. But if you encounter the same issue as me, just follow the steps. It's fine. I'm going to look for combine using the shortcut S. Select my first body, my second, hit OK. And now I have my phone case fixed. We are missing our camera, so we'll just quickly do that. We'll go back to our iPhone, hide our body, and here I'm just going to create a new sketch. Make sure to go back to your solid, not your surface. Create a sketch on this face. Again, I'm just going to project because I want to refer to this. Select the outer edges of the camera, hit OK. Again, for simplicity, I'm going to hide my body. Offset, this time it works, and I'll offset it by, let's just do 1, I guess, no 2. Finish the sketch, go to my case. Now I can select the sketch profile. Oops, select all of it. And I can just cut through. So in this case, it cuts through all the way, that's fine. Hit OK. And now I have a little hole for my camera. If I look at my phone, you can see my camera is able to stick out. Okay, so now we've got our phone case wrapped all around. If you were to try to actually put this in your phone, it's going to be very, very difficult. Because if you think about it, there's no opening for it to actually slot in. So in this case, I'm going to create a cut on this bottom edge so they can access the charging port as well as to open it and slip your phone in. So here, once again, I can either create a sketch, plane and angle sketch, or I could even just offset sketch here and just make sure that it is beyond my case edge. In this case, I'm fine with just an offset sketch. It's a bit easier for me. Hit OK. Select my plane, create a new sketch again. And what we'll do is we are going to essentially create a edge, a sloped edge. So just something like this is fine, right? I'm going to draw my line through here, hit escape to stop the line. I'll draw another one, and I'll just go past. I'm not sure why I projected there, it's fine. So what I want to do now is to find my middle line, which in this case is the origin, so I know it's a line, but let's just say this was positioned off center from your origin. I know that this line is essentially the same distance as away from the two sides. So my midpoint line here, I'm going to select it and I'll draw upwards, making sure this is a vertical, which it should be anyways because it's perpendicular, but just in case. Make this a construction line, and the reason I do this is because I want to essentially mirror these two lines. In this case, I can hit T to trim off the edge, but I can't trim off this edge because I don't have a line connecting to this. So what I can do is I can just draw another line, connect it down. Again, make this a construction line using X, T to trim. And now I've got my, if it loads, profile here. I'm going to select all of it, double click, mirror, select my mirror line, hit OK. And now I've got my sketch profile here. And what I'll do is I'll just finish sketch, select my profile, hit E for extrude, and I can cut away however far I want. In this case, I think that looks okay. If not, let's just say you really want it to be on this line here, right? This edge. What you can try and do is either go in, arrow, slowly adjust it, right? You can see I can slowly adjust it. The closer you zoom in, the more freedom. You see how it increases from 7.4 to 7.5. If I zoom out, then I have less freedom. You see it's going from 10 to 20. So if you need to have a bit more precision, you can always zoom in using the scroll wheel, and then you have a bit more precision from there. Again, I'm fine with 7.5. I think that's close enough. So that looks okay. Now, most phone cases have some sort of pattern or design on the back, right? And if you're going to 3D print this, which you can, maybe I want like a logo or pattern or even my name in this or whatever. In this case, we can always import an SVG file, which is just a vector file, or you can draw a sketch. Again, I'm just going to reuse the sketch tool which we used last session. So I'll create a sketch on the back plane, hit S for my shortcut, type in text. Now I've got my text tool. I'll just select somewhere in the center here. I'm just gonna type here, cool iPhone case, bro. Select bold. And again, I can position this text using the alignment tools, or I can also adjust the bounding box here. You have to adjust it outside from here, but yeah, I can adjust the box. I can curve it, angle it, whatever. Alright, so I'll just do it something like this, and this looks okay. I'm gonna finish sketch. I'm gonna select my text, press E for extrude, just extrude out. Again, I just want to make sure that this is going to cut both through my entire case. I'm gonna select symmetric, hit OK, and now you can see I have my phone case with cool iPhone. So this is just something I can do. You can also import your own SVG patterns and then extrude them in the same way. Just as long as you got them on the right face, it should be fine. So from here, I can say I want it to look cool. I'll just give it a black texture. Again, remember when you're 3D printing this, this is going to fall off, so you may want to draw a sketch and connect these with a line. But just for an example, you know, this is fine by me. So I've got my case. I can make any appearance I want. Double check that it still fits my phone. That looks fine. I can preview it. This is sort of what it looked like. It's all good. I'll just save it and we are done. That's the end of the first activity.